p.m. All right, hey, Dad. You look at this matchup between Texas Tech and Mississippi State. Where do you start?
When you look at the matchups, when you look at everything on paper, you feel like you understand why Mississippi State is now a 10-point favorite in this game. The matchups really seem to favor State. This is a Texas Tech team that gives up 32 points a game. They give up almost 260, 270 yards passing a game, and that's against non-air raid teams. So, what are you going to do against Mississippi State? It just feels like, they don't have an elite pass rusher that can sort of make State pay for not having Charles Cross over there. They don't, their top receiver has opted out of the game, so that sort of makes it a little easier with Martin Emerson not being there. It just feels like everything's in place. And then you have the storyline of Mike Leach wanting this game personally. It feels like a lot of positive momentum for Mississippi State, a lot of working in MSU's favor.
Is that something that we just believe is the case based on him talking about them owing his money, or has he talked about or behind the scenes? Or
I haven't, obviously I'm not there, and he's not saying anything behind the scenes, but you can just sort of, if I'm reading between the lines correctly, and from what I know of Mike Leach personally, he wants this one. He wants it bad. He's gonna coach this game the way State fans wish he would coach an Egg Bowl. I'll just put it that way, I think.
All right. Texas Tech has just 16 sacks all season long.
Yeah, not a pass rushing team.
And Tyree Wilson is their leading sacker.
Okay.
Sack man.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
He's got
Sacker is probably correct.
Five sacks on the year.
Yeah.
That's it.
So this is a good opportunity for
another guy with one, another guy with one. There's 3.5, there's 2.5, and then two more guys with one. That's it. In fact, they've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players on their entire defense that have recorded a sack this season.
Yeah. It's not like State's been a tremendous pass rushing team or anything, but this is a great opportunity, a great audition for Nick Jones. He's going to be starting. I think he's going to be starting at left tackle for Mississippi State, a JUCO transfer who is his first year on campus, but hasn't gotten a lot of reps, obviously, because Charles Cross has been there. And the question I would have, obviously, is Will Rogers. You've sort of taken that for granted for 12 games, right? That nothing was going to come off the backside to pressure me. Is that in the back of his mind a little bit? Like, might have to be a little quicker with the ball at times. Maybe, sort of see how the first quarter goes and then figure it out from there. Rogers is an interesting guy in this game, too. If he has – I got the number right here. I want to make sure the math is correct. So if he throws for 52 yards – or 52 yards in this game, he will have the second greatest passing season yardage-wise in SEC history. So I feel pretty confident on that one. Which is funny, by the way. He could finish. He may get there first, but Bryce Young with an extra game is probably going to finish ahead of him. If he throws for 551 yards, which seems unlikely, but
that's a big day.
That's a big day, but that's not the craziest thing in the world to imagine. That would put him over 5,000 yards, and he would be the second SEC quarterback to ever do that, along with Joe Burrow. So Mekhi Polk looking to go over 1,000 yards. He only needs 11 yards to do that.
So Joe Burrow, to get to 5,000, had the two extra. Well, actually, had 3 extra games.
3 extra games, yeah.
The SEC championship game.
He threw for 56-71. It's not like he just barely got over. He crushed that mark. But
it would have been 2 more games than
what Rodgers is going to have.
Will Rogers is going to play in.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't just knock on the door. And if you think about his SEC championship game and the 2 playoff games, he put up monster numbers in those 3 games.
Yeah, without looking, I would be willing to bet in those 3 games he was around 1,200 to 1,300 yards passing.
Will Rogers has thrown for 300 yards in 10 straight games.
Mm-hmm.
Since 2004, the only quarterbacks with longer streaks of consecutive 300-yard passing games are Graham Harrell at Texas Tech under Mike Leach. He went 16 in a row. And Gardner Minshew under Mike Leach at Washington State, he went 11 straight.
There you go.
Will Rogers leads the Power 5 in passing yardage. That, of course, is tops in the SEC, and he's second in the FBS. Just the 8th quarterback to ever record a 4,000-yard passing season and holds the Mississippi State record.
And then, like I said, with Mekhi Polk, with 2 catches and 11 yards, will go over 100 catches. He'll be the first MSU receiver to ever do that. He already has the single-season record. And 11 yards to get 1,000. I think he would be the 3rd state receiver to do that.
I can't ever not read this stat when it's here.
Okay.
There have been 15 games of 400-plus passing yards in Mississippi State football history. 8 of those 15 have occurred under Mike Leach in his 23 career games as the head coach. Mississippi State had thrown for 400 or more yards 7 times in the previous 1,193 games prior to Mike Leach's arrival in Starkville. I love that.
It's a great stat, yeah.
I love that stat.
Well, what kills me is, you looking back, every year I do a poll of my fellow media members, and we talked. One of the questions I asked was, is Will Rogers going to break Dak Prescott's single-season passing record, which was 37.93? And I think more than half said no. And here he is knocking on 5,000. Like, I said yes, because I was like, it's really not a lot of yards when you throw the ball 50 times a game. And, yeah, I mean, he's had a much better season than anybody could have predicted, especially if you did that predicting 3 or 4 weeks into the season.
Yeah. How about this reminder that Will Rogers' dad coached both Will Rogers and Gardner Minshew in high school.
Yeah, no question.
That's really cool. All right.
And then just looking around, I mean, Marks is going to finish probably with 85, 86 catches. There's a chance if he has a big game, Dylan Johnson could go over 70 catches. Jaden Walley could go over 60 catches. I mean, the numbers are just silly when you think about what State was. I remember Moorhead's last year. That summer he had a thing where he brought the media in to sort of talk to us about his offense and just sort of have like a film session with us. And that day I had done a podcast about, will State have a 500-yard receiver this year? And he I guess he listened. He's like, Brian, I listened to the podcast. Yes, we will have one. He was wrong. 2019, they did not have a 500-yard receiver. Here we are 2 years later, and State has 1, 2, 3 500-yard receivers, and will probably have at least one more, and maybe 2 more if Malik Heath can do something in this game. So they could have 5 500-yard receivers come this time tomorrow.
So you think Joe Moorhead was a regular listener to your podcast?
He tuned in every now and then. There's no question about that.
Is that a source of great pride for you?
Yeah. I don't know if Leach listens or not. I haven't gotten any indication that he does.
You asked him?
No, but at the same time, I've never gotten a text from him that says, hey, I wanted to talk to you about something.
You think he's the kind of guy that would hear something that he doesn't like and reach out to try and talk to you in person?
I don't know. Doesn't like, no, but if he had a legitimate question about, like, where did you hear that? Which is what Moorhead had for me a couple of times. It wasn't that he... No, I told him the truth.
You outed a source?
No, I didn't out a source. It wasn't a source. It was like, it's just on message boards, Joe. The question he asked me was, I talked about how at the time, like Tommy Stevens, like there were some fans sort of rooting against him, that they wanted Keaton Thompson to be the starting quarterback, and he had not seen that. And I was like, yeah, it's happening on message boards and on social media. He's like, okay, I didn't know where you were getting that from. I was like, well, I didn't make it up, Joe.
Yeah. Mississippi State making its 5th appearance in the Liberty Bowl. They are 3-1 all time in that particular bowl game. First appearance, Hey Dad was not there, at least I don't think he was. The 1963 edition of the game that was played in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, when the Dogs won it 16-12 over NC State.
Heard it was very cold that day.
Probably. There's also a chance that Mississippi State has played in a colder Liberty Bowl in Memphis than they did on that day in 1963 in Philadelphia.
It's true. 1991.
Just guessing.
That Pat Green?
Mississippi State and Texas Tech have not met in 51 years. State
I wasn't there for that either.
won 3 of the last 4 meetings. 1968 matchup was designated as an SEC game for the Bulldogs. I don't know how that works, but okay. And it was a tie, 28-28. We'll be back. Sports Talk.